Charles Anson has been with us all day since we heard of the news, still with us in the studio. Hello to you, Charles. Look, why don't we add to this speculation, despite the fact none of us, I suspect, have the faintest idea, but I mean, does anybody have any clue as to the name of the job? I mean, Peter was coming up with quite an interesting theory that Diana could be in there somewhere, but I mean, do you have a view on it?
No, none of us know, of course, but we get a great deal of pleasure guessing at names of babies.
But that is all any of us are doing, isn't it?
That's part of it, and I think it'll be a day or two before a name is announced at the very least. And I think the tradition in the royal family is for a child to have several names, so more than a commoner. So I think it's quite likely. And quite possible that Diana might be one of them. Well, what will be I don't think it would be a first name, but I think it might be amongst several first names.
Let's add to the speculation then as to when they may leave the hospital. Any guesses on that?
Again, I think it'll depend very much on how the Duchess is feeling and what the medical team says. I would have thought their instinct, since Prince William and Duchess are a close family, and now with the two children and a small baby as one of them, their instinct will be to want to leave fairly soon and get back to Kensington Palace.
I mean, you don't see the arrival of George, which we saw a moment ago with William, we'll have a look at now. You don't see that as perhaps meaning that they're due to leave fairly soon?
I think it could be either way. Yeah, I mean, it's either to see his sister for the first time and then go back to bed, because he's not that far from his bedtime by now.
I mean, to what extent is all of this choreographed in advance? I mean, has a team sat down and worked out this precise move? And actually, it was very interesting because Peter did say that the idea was George would walk, and William clearly worked out that he wasn't going to do that. But to what extent is there a team sitting down working this sort of move out?
Well, the Prince William and the Duchess of Cambridge have a small team, including their press secretary, and of course, an anticipated event like a royal birth, they have time to sit down and say, look, how are we going to handle this?
A small team, what, 3 or 4, half a dozen?
Yes, I mean a private secretary, a press secretary, and 1 or 2 other aides, and they would have had time to plan it, very carefully. And I think the idea would be to sort of get a reasonable amount of coverage that satisfies public interest, and then go into a sort of period of privacy.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not so much the normal spinning of something to get as much good publicity as you can. It's almost actually because that, I suppose, that just happens anyway. You don't need to spin it, do you?
I think that's the thing about the royal family, our royal family, is that there is so much natural interest in them, not only in this country and the Commonwealth, but really throughout the world, even in all the great republics, a huge interest in the British monarchy. So I think sort of getting a balance between providing information that satisfies public curiosity, and after all, with something like the birth of a baby, it's totally well-intentioned, good-natured interest and curiosity. So I think
the election, the week before the election, doesn't change the plan at all. I mean, is there a sensitivity to that?
I think there's certainly a sensitivity about other substantive royal stories occupying the news during an election campaign. But the birth of a baby, you can't control the timing of it, and I think, particularly as it happens to have come over a long weekend, it probably adds to the variety of the news. So I think there's no problem on that front. I think the wishes of the two parents of Prince William and the Duchess would be to satisfy a very legitimate worldwide interest in the birth of a new baby, and then probably go quite quiet after that. So the choreography is actually quite simple. It's between sort of public interest on one hand and privacy on the other.
Well, these are live
balance, right?
These are live pictures from the news helicopter, and it is through this pack that interest is in fact filtered. They're all waiting, of course, to see if the family and the new baby does come out. But it all comes through that pack there to the rest of us, and so we'll wait to see how that moves on. Charles, very interesting to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you. Right, we won't be away for too long, waiting to find out what happens outside the hospital at Paddington, of course. But let's get a weather forecast now with Alex.